A government tax agency has just admitted that they will enter your home and steal your Bitcoin hardware wallet. This is just the first example of what is certain to be many governments that will follow suit. So the question is, how do you protect your Bitcoin when somebody enters your personal and private space? Well, today we're going to talk about a number of solutions for exactly that. How do you hide your Bitcoin from prying eyes? I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session. Yes, indeed. We have an example of a government tax agency saying they will enter your home and take your Bitcoin hardware wallet. The example that I'm referring to here is actually South Korea, and their national tax service has said, we analyze tax delinquents' coin transaction history through crypto tracking programs, and if there is suspicion of offline concealment, we will conduct home searches and seizures. And that is a scary thing to hear. Somebody not only saying you owe us, but saying we're coming to get it and kicking in your door and taking your Bitcoin. And so there are a number of different ways that you can approach this in ensuring that you make that difficult for other people, not just, a government agency coming for your Bitcoin, but even, somebody that's coming and trying to rob you as well. There's all different types of, we'll say, less desirable people that could want to get their hands on your Bitcoin. So there's a couple ways to approach this, and we're going to go through a number of them in this video. But the main goals are, one would be plausible deniability, having the person believe you either have no Bitcoin or you don't have any access to it here, or that they've gotten a hold of everything, even though you've just given them a small decoy amount. And two is whether or not you have the ability to even comply. So somebody's in your home, they're saying, give me all your Bitcoin. Do you actually have the credentials at your disposal to truly comply and actually hand over the Bitcoin? Or have you made it more difficult than that? So we're going to go through a variety and some mixes of both of those in this video. And we're going to start with making sure you're as private as possible to begin with. So one of the biggest favors you can do yourself when it comes to Bitcoin is obtaining Bitcoin in a private manner. And you can do this a variety of different ways. If there's a local meetup, you can go and you can trade cash for Bitcoin and obtain some that way. That's always excellent. If you can earn Bitcoin, that's another fantastic way to keep private about, your earnings in terms of, people not being able to pry into your net worth at any given time. But also there are online resources that you can use to be matched up with individuals so that you can buy Bitcoin without having to, pour over a whole bunch of private information in the process. So one such example of this is a platform called HodlHodl. And again, it's basically a matching website that finds people that want to buy and or sell Bitcoin and in whatever currency you're dealing with through a variety of different payment methods. Now, the payment methods can require KYC, like if you send a bank transfer or something like that. But the magic is that there's no explicit link between that traditional payment method and Bitcoin being obtained. And so only the person that receives the dollars that you sent will know who it's from and why. And the Bitcoin is something that happens completely separately, and there's no record of those two things being linked. And so this is a great option when it comes to that. There are other peer-to-peer platforms that allow you to do things like this, things like RoboSats or Bisq, or I believe Peach in the EU is a good option. But also for those that are here in Canada with me, Bitcoin Well also offers a great option with their cash voucher system. And this basically utilizes their ATM networks and you being able to create a Bitcoin Well account with just an email address. There are limits on how much you can purchase at one time, but if you're patient, you can obtain a fair amount of Bitcoin over a relatively short period of time without having to give up your private information. And I think that's excellent. I have done videos on both HodlHodl and the cash voucher system for Bitcoin well. So make sure you check them out down below. I'll also say that if you have already accumulated Bitcoin and you've done it through a KYC'd exchange, and so there is a record of you having bought Bitcoin, you have a couple of different options. Number one, you keep that Bitcoin as it is and just know that there is a record of it and that's not to be undone. And there are steps that you can take after that, which we'll discuss next, that will at least help forward-facing privacy. Or the other option is to actually sell that Bitcoin and reobtain it through non-KYC means. So some of the examples I just offered. If you're going to keep the Bitcoin that you've already KYC'd, then it may be interesting to you to start a second stack. So continue building your Bitcoin stack, but in a segregated non-KYC pile. So yes, there's a record of you having bought this Bitcoin, but this Bitcoin over here is yours and private, and you can keep it private as you please. So up to you how you handle it, but those are the options. Now, another thing that we want to address here is something called on-chain privacy. Bitcoin transactions are pseudonymous, but they can be linked to identities with things like KYC. So you buy Bitcoin at the exchange, you withdraw it to a Bitcoin address, there's a record that you bought it, and then you withdrew it to that address. And so it stands to reason you own the Bitcoin in that address. And even as it hops around to different addresses, there are ways of looking at the Bitcoin blockchain and being able to paint a picture of what you still own. And if you fib about what you own and later on there's a link for some Bitcoin that you said you sold, but you purchased something and then it gets shipped to your house, it stands to reason you actually held that Bitcoin the whole time. So on-chain privacy is important. And whether or not you obtained Bitcoin with KYC or without, I think that the next measures we're going to discuss are still important regardless on both of those instances. And so I would say one thing worth looking at is using CoinJoin. And so there's wasabiwallet.io. I have done a tutorial on how to use this, but basically what it does is it makes transactions to yourself, but it does it at the same time as many other people. And so it then becomes difficult, even if somebody knew you held Bitcoin at that point in time, they now don't know which addresses are yours. And so if it's non-KYC, then you're already pretty private, but you would still CoinJoin so people can't work their way backwards and try to see how much Bitcoin you have. If you do have KYC, you're doing it for that purpose as well. If you're non-KYC, then it's just helping in both directions. So either way, worth doing some CoinJoin, utilizing something like Wasabi Wallet. There are other options out there. I will link them down below. Now, beyond that, I also really like a feature in Sparrow Wallet that when you do go to spend, there's a privacy option that you can click as you're sending, and it will structure the transaction in a way that looks like a CoinJoin. It looks like two people doing a CoinJoin, and it makes it more difficult to interpret the amount that was spent and where the change went and who was involved, if there was more than one person involved. And so that's a nice little feature, and I like to utilize that anytime that I'm peeling off some Bitcoin to use. And then finally, what I'll say is something like a mobile wallet like Aqua as a spending wallet, even though it's just meant to be a nice, easy spending wallet that allows you to use the Lightning Network and Liquid, which are just faster, cheaper ways of spending Bitcoin. When you go to load that wallet through something called a peg-in transaction into your Liquid wallet, basically all it is you're sending regular Bitcoin to the wallet and it converts it to a form where it can be spent quicker and cheaper. But in the process of that conversion, you're also given some additional privacy because the funds that land in your wallet are different than the source. And it's hard to kind of link those together. And then as you spend, again, typically if you're sending out of the wallet, it's usually a Lightning transaction, which also does one of these swaps in the back end and gives you some additional privacy. So if you were able to, do a coin join with Wasabi Wallet, and then when you want to spend some Bitcoin, withdraw via Sparrow Wallet into something like Aqua, you're getting a coin join. You're getting a fake coin join as you withdraw to Aqua. You're getting a swap when you load the Aqua wallet, and you're getting a swap when you spend from Aqua. So you're getting all of these things that when you stack them on top of each other, it's really difficult to interpret, what your net worth is, where Bitcoin has come from, who owns what. It gives you some peace of mind that no random person can easily take a look on chain and say, geez, this person has a lot of money. I want to go to their house and steal from them. So hopefully that gives you some ideas. I, of course, have tutorials on all of these things that I've mentioned, and I will link them down below. So far, we've been talking about giving yourself some preemptive plausible deniability. How much Bitcoin do you actually hold? Now we want to talk about getting into the situation where somebody is gaining access to your hardware and potentially your backup. And so we're going to talk about having something like a cold card or any other hardware device that's securing your Bitcoin. This is great when it comes to remote hacks, somebody trying to, over the internet, access your funds, because the credentials that allow you to spend are on a device like this that isn't connected to the internet. So it protects you from that. But if somebody enters your home, there's a couple different variations of what can happen. The big one that, even if you're not home, leaves you vulnerable is your backup. Your backup typically looks something like this. It's a list of words. It's 12, sometimes 24 words on a piece of paper, or maybe stamped into steel. Whatever it is, those words are very, very sensitive. And if somebody gets a hold of those, it's like you're giving them the key to your vault, to your digital vault that holds your Bitcoin. As soon as they have these, it's all over. They can spend your money and take it. And so one thing that you can do is separate this, your words, and this, your device, by having the words somewhere off-site. You need to access your Bitcoin from time to time. You've got a device, but this device is locked down by a PIN. So that's helpful if somebody breaks in, you're not home. There's no seed phrase for them to access. And with something like the cold card, there's a threshold, I believe 13 tries somebody gets before the device is just a brick, before it no longer works. So they get a few tries, they're likely not going to crack into your device if your PIN is good enough. However, even if your seed is off-site, if somebody gets into your home while you're there and then physically coerces you and says, listen, I'm sitting here or taking you away until you give me access to this device. I need the PIN right now. So you've already hedged against hiding your seed phrase here. It's somewhere else, but you still have access to the device. What can you do? And so the first thing I want to talk about here is the concept of passphrases. So what is a passphrase? And I do want to say that I'm using the example of a cold card queue because this is my go-to hardware that I always use. But passphrases are a feature that are available on most good hardware wallets. And so if you have different hardware, then it's very likely you will be able to use a passphrase. So what is a passphrase? A passphrase is basically, it's like adding a 13th or 25th word to your backup that nobody knows is there. And it's unique in that nobody knows it exists because the original words, the 12 words, are still a working wallet. And it doesn't tell you that there is a passphrase added to it. So if somebody got these 12 words and then tried to utilize them to access the money, well, then they would see a zero balance. Or you might load some money onto the regular 12-word seed phrase, the regular account, as a decoy amount. And more about that in a second. But basically, adding a passphrase creates an entirely new wallet that has never been used. And the passphrase can be anything. Numbers, letters, phrases, it doesn't matter. You likely want to make it something easy for you to remember. And you probably do want to write it down and keep it somewhere separately just in case, because you don't want to lock yourself out of your money, but it adds that layer of security. And so functionally, what does this look like? Well, one, it's actually now no longer an issue that you have the 12 words accessible in the same place as your device, because the 12 words aren't enough information to get access to your money. Furthermore, when you go to log into your device, there is a section for passphrases, but it will function as a regular wallet once you put in the PIN. It jumps you into the device, and it won't say, hey, you have a passphrase, enter it now. That's just an option there that you can utilize if you have a passphrase. So for somebody looking at the device, you can say, this is the PIN, here you go. It unlocks it, and then they may just leave with the device knowing the PIN and being able to access it. Or they may ask for you to actually access it and show them and move the coins. And if that's the case, then this is where a decoy amount on the regular wallet is useful. And a further thing about passphrases, if you enter the wrong passphrase, it doesn't say this is the wrong passphrase. It goes to the wallet that would be created from whatever you entered. So for example, if my passphrase was Apple with a capital A, that would take me to one wallet. If the next time I go to log in, I enter Apple with a lowercase a, that takes me to a totally different wallet that hasn't been used. So there's no way to prove that you have used a passphrase. If somebody's trying to coerce you, you can type in all types of crap and it'll just keep up bringing up empty wallets. And so this is an excellent way for some additional plausible deniability when you do have access to all of the credentials in your home, whether it be the seed phrase or the device or both. Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/BTC sessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions. CoinKite has been in the game for years, creating hands down the best and most secure hardware when it comes to securing your Bitcoin. The Cold Card Q is an absolute powerhouse and my daily driver, and it's ideal for newcomers and advanced users alike. The Tap Signer gives you a low-cost, user-friendly option for those just getting started or for convenience when traveling. You can head to coinkite.com and use code BTC Sessions for discounts, or simply scan the QR code on the screen to get started right away. So let's now talk about a situation where you are worried about physical coercion and you don't want any way to comply, but you still want easy access to your funds when you're not under coercion. And a solution to this could be something called trick pins. Now, this is something that is specific to the cold card queue here, but I'm just going to describe what it is, and it may be of use to some of you. With a trick pin, basically you have your regular pin that gives you access to the device and the actual account that you use. And then you can set up different pins that cause the device to act differently. One pin might take the device to a decoy wallet. And that's all fine and good, as we discussed in the previous example with passphrases. Decoy wallets are useful. But again, if you want to make it so that you cannot comply and you want to be able to make that decision on the spot, then there are a couple trick pins that you can use on the cold card queue specifically that would suddenly flip the script and ensure that you can no longer comply. Now, this would be contingent on you storing your seed phrase in a different location. Okay, so that would be the one thing, because if your seed phrase is there, even if there's a passphrase attached, if somebody's really coercing you to comply, you could, right? You have the seed phrase and you know the passphrase, you could comply. In this instance, if the seed is not there, but the device is, and now there's a pin to get into the device, if you set up a trick pin, you can set it to do a couple different things that will no longer allow you to comply. One, it could wipe the device entirely. Two, it could brick the device, meaning the device will no longer function at all. And so all you need to do is have an easy to remember trick pin that does either of those things, and you can set it up like that. Something like 99999, like all nines. Something you wouldn't accidentally type. You type that in, the device doesn't function anymore. And the attacker is no longer able to access. No matter what you do, you cannot comply in that instance. And so that would be a quick decision that you need to make on the spot, but it is possible, and it is a way to do it so that day to day you still have some access. But if somebody comes in and starts demanding the pin to the device and you don't have access to the seed, you can brick the device on the spot saying, oh yeah, here's my pin, type it in, and it's destroyed. There you go. Full tutorial on that, by the way, down in the show notes, just as in everything else. Going further down the inability to comply rabbit hole, we're going to take a look at another option that pertains to your seed phrase, your words. And again, in this instance, the passphrase, yes, does hide your real wallet, but you can comply in that instance if somebody gets the seed phrase, because you would know the passphrase. But there's another unique thing that was created and used with a lot of CoinKite products, something called Seed XOR. Seed XOR, what it does is it takes your regular seed phrase and it actually splits it into pieces. However many pieces you want. It might be 2, might be 3. But the point being is you would need all of the pieces to be able to recover the original seed. So you wouldn't keep the regular seed. You would create a seed XOR. You would basically get 3 sets of 12 words perhaps, and you would put those in 3 locations. In order to recreate the original seed, you would need all 3 pieces, which means if somebody breaks into a location, even if you're present and they can coerce you and you have only access to 1 piece of the seed XOR, it means you cannot comply. This is 1 of 3. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to get on a plane to get the second piece and another plane to get on the third piece, or go for a 3-hour car ride or whatever it may be. But you disperse them, so it makes it difficult. Furthermore, each piece of the seed XOR is its own seed phrase that actually still functions as a regular wallet, meaning that you could put some decoy funds in them, so that if somebody comes, you have also plausible deniability. Listen, I've only got $1,000 in here. But here you go. Here's the seed phrase. So very, very important. And in the context of seed XOR and being unable to comply, that's the important one. This would be if somebody accessed the seed itself, not necessarily the device. So maybe you might have this in combination with a device that has a trick pin to brick the device just in case. And again, with those things, you are unable to comply as soon as you put in that trick pin and as soon as you say, hey, listen, like this, here's the seed phrase. There you go. Now, I do want to briefly mention in regards to seed XOR. While I think it's really, really cool, for me, I tend not to rely on seed XOR mainly because there's a very low threshold for error when it comes to recovery. And what I mean is if your device breaks and you need to recover your wallet, you need every piece of the seed XOR to successfully recover, meaning that if you lose one of the three pieces or however many you've made, if you lose any single piece of it, you no longer have the backup. You need all of them. So that is very important to note. But if it's for the individual, it's weighing what are the chances that my device is going to break and I'm going to lose one of my backup parts of the seed XOR at the same time. So as long as you're diligent checking that you still have your backup from time to time, the odds of those two things happening in tandem can be low. Just for me, I prefer some more fault tolerance with my setup, and that will bring us to our next topic. Now, this final section here, this is a solution that has a number of things going for it. Number one, you're again going to have some plausible deniability if you do this right. Number two, you're also going to have an inability to comply if somebody's coercing you to send your Bitcoin to them. And number three, as I mentioned in the last one, you're going to have some fault tolerance. In another word, the ability to screw up some things and still be okay and able to access your funds. And that solution is Multisig. So Multisig is a situation where, let's say, a regular Bitcoin wallet, you can think of it as a digital vault with a key that you need to open it up. Multisig is a digital vault that requires multiple keys to open. And so I'm going to show some examples of this. You can do this in a way where you completely do it on your own. You can do this in a way where you have an assisted multisig where a company would hold a key, but you can still remain private in that process. So let's talk about it. So one example here is NUNCHUK. I quite like these guys. The way it works is you can create entirely your own multisig. It's a mobile-friendly platform. They do have a desktop app, but I tend to default to the mobile if I'm using it. And so what it allows you to do is use multiple hardware devices. Let's say you have 3, and you set a threshold of how many of those devices are required to unlock and move your money. Let's say you said 2. So that would be 2 of 3. You have 3 keys, 2 are required. It's a 2 of 3 multisig. And what happens is you take those different devices and you separate them. You have 1 in one location and 2 in different locations. In an instance where somebody enters your home and begins to coerce you to give them your Bitcoin, you only have 1 key. So even if the person knows you have a multisig, you cannot comply. Even if they can see your balance, you cannot comply. But as with the other options, you have plausible deniability because individual keys, individual devices can still be used as decoy wallets, single sig decoy wallets, single key decoy wallets. And so this is a great setup where you can audit your balance whenever you choose. And you can hide it behind, hidden pins and all that kind of stuff. You can manage your funds. You can have plausible deniability. You have the ability to, or the inability to comply. You have all of these different things going for you. So NUNCHUK is one way to do this. And they also do have the option to do an assisted multisig. And so, as I said in our example, if you did it yourself, maybe you have 3 keys and you require 2 of them to spend your money. But in that instance, if you destroyed one of the devices, you still have enough keys to move the funds. There's some nuance there, but again, go check the tutorial video on this and other examples of multisig. But with their assisted multisig, they've got something called HoneyBadger, and they've got lots of other options. And there are other companies that do stuff like this as well. For instance, Onchain and Casa. Although be cautious and make sure the one that you're using is not going to require ID, because that's part of the plausible deniability part, and the additional records are never helpful, we'll say. Nonetheless, if you use their assisted option, what happens is the company holds 1 key. And it's done in such a way where if you begin to lose keys, you require at least 2 keys, right? So NUNCHUK holding 1 key does not allow them to spend your money. If you lose multiple keys though, but you've still got 1 key, between yourself and NUNCHUK, you can sign together to move funds to a new safe location and reset up a new multisig. So it gives you the ability to screw up without losing everything. And the nice thing about NUNCHUK, as I said, is they do not require KYC. You can use a dummy email address that is just dedicated to this purpose. That's all the information needed in order to do that. They do also have options for baked-in inheritance planning, all of that. But in the context of this video, the important part is the ability to have a distributed multisig with perhaps some assistance if you want it, and the ability to remain safe, or your funds to remain safe, if somebody were to try and coerce you or try to steal your Bitcoin. Now, you can also do your own self-rolled multisig in Sparrow Wallet, which we mentioned earlier in this video. And I've got a video down below on how to do that as well. There's some important considerations that we're going to go over at the end here, just to ensure that when you're making choices of what setup you're going to do, that you do it correctly and that you keep in mind not just yourself, but your family. Securing your Bitcoin doesn't have to be complicated or invasive. With NUNCHUK's HoneyBadger plan, you get state-of-the-art multisig with built-in inheritance planning and no KYC required. NUNCHUK is trusted by users to secure billions of dollars in Bitcoin. The HoneyBadger plan offers 204 assisted multisig, guiding you step-by-step on mobile or desktop. It works seamlessly with hardware wallets like TapSigner, Coldcard, Jade, and plenty of others, so you're always in control. Plus, with non-KYC inheritance planning, you can ensure your Bitcoin goes to your loved ones. No private info needed. Take control of your Bitcoin today. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen to check out the HoneyBadger plan. Looking for a simple and secure way to manage your Bitcoin on mobile? Aqua Wallet has you covered. It's user-friendly and puts you in full control of your Bitcoin with secure self-custody. Aqua also supports Lightning and Liquid Network, making fast, cheap Bitcoin payments and asset transfers easier than ever. Plus, it even supports stablecoins, giving you ultimate flexibility. Built on open source code, Aqua is transparent, trustworthy, and perfect for beginner and pros alike. Ready to upgrade your Bitcoin experience? Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen now to download Aqua Wallet today. DEBIFI is the best and easiest way to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Funds are held in a multisig escrow where you hold a key, and the platform allows for excellent hardware like the Coldcard Mark IV and the Q. You have access to flexible conditions, the best rates, and institutional-grade liquidity. If you're looking to make use of your capital, don't sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it. You can head over to DEBIFI.com to check them out, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. Now, I did want to also go beyond the idea of someone entering your home trying to steal your Bitcoin, and maybe just step a little bit further outside that box. You're seeing writing on the wall. You're getting freaked out about the jurisdiction you reside in, and you're thinking to yourself, I need to leave. and you want to leave with your Bitcoin. But, oh my God, I'm going to, carry a device over a border? That seems scary. Well, there are some very unique solutions out there. And I'm sure that you could think through a number of ways with some of the things that I've said here about how to do it. There are other options, though, that allow you to travel in a very kind of sneaky way with key material that leads to not much of anything, or to not even to have the key material on your person, but have information that you could simply have online without risking an online hack of your funds. And one that I want to talk about is border wallets. And while I won't get deep into how this works, the long and the short of it is you do get a seed phrase, but the seed phrase does not directly link to your money. The seed phrase tells a program like Sparrow Wallet how to arrange all of the possible seed words into a grid. So if you put in one set of words, all of the possible words will be arranged into a grid like this. But if you put in a separate set of words, it will completely rearrange where all of the words are. All you need to remember, so you could take your seed phrase for your border wallet and you could put it wherever. You could put it on your Google Drive. You could text it to a friend. You could do pretty much anything. And all it's going to do is those 12 words, while they do look like a regular wallet and they would function as such, the reality is what you would use them for is to generate this grid of words. And you're thinking, well, why is that useful? Well, it's because you would have remembered an image, a drawing that you made that would select your seed phrase for you. So, you might write a letter, you might make a smiley face, and all you need to remember is, what did the image look like? Where was it on the grid? And the order that you put it in. So maybe it's just like an L. Maybe you started at line 10 and you went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you went 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And there's some nuance here, but you get the point. It's an easy to remember pattern. People are really good at remembering patterns. They're really bad at remembering specific data and orders. So this is an excellent solution. You can walk across. All you have is the image of a smiley face in your head, and then you get to where you need to be. You access your cloud storage, or you get your friend to give you the words that you texted to them, whatever it is. You pull up your grid, you draw your picture, you have a recovery for your money. So this is really, really cool. But there's one other thing that I want to show that allows you to transfer seed material securely via different communication layers, as long as you have a trusted person on the other side, like a family member, somebody that you love, that you can trust with the key material where they are, and then you can go meet up with them. In this instance, I'm referring to another awesome feature that has been created by CoinKite and the Cold Card Q here, which is Key Teleport. And it's a way where, without getting into too much detail, you can securely transfer enough information to another cold card, even on the other side of the planet, with some help of a coordinated person that is on the other side. So you could send a seed phrase, you could clone an entire cold card onto a different one on the other side of the planet. And even if somebody is eavesdropping on the conversation, they will not be able to extract the information and gain access to your seed. The only device that can unlock that information is the other cold card on the other side of the communication. So really, really cool way of getting key material to anywhere else on the planet without even having to go there first, without having to bring anything with you. Just have a secure conversation with somebody and get them to do this process just via video call, and you're pretty much good to go. Again, I'll have a video for this down in the show notes. So now we've gone through a whole bunch of different options of how you could potentially keep yourself safe, both through plausible deniability and the inability to comply, so that people can't take your Bitcoin. Now, there's some important things to consider through this. So I have a short list of kind of do's and don'ts as you are looking at setting up things like this. So number one, your do's. Of course, you want to have some secure and clear instructions for your next of kin, because as secure as you are, sometimes and oftentimes people can shoot themselves in the foot by being too secure. And if you have trouble accessing your money, then your family is certain to have trouble unless they're well informed. So you need to keep it simple enough so that you're confident, and you need to have some clear instructions separate from where you keep your actual key material and your devices, but some secure and separate instructions to walk your family through what to do if something happens to you. If you don't have that right now, that should be priority number one, because if you're not confident your family can access it, they probably will have a lot of trouble and potentially never access it. Now, with this is you want to review and kind of test your system, I'd say at least once a year. Just do a little audit. What did I do? Where did I put stuff? How is this controlled? Go through it not just with yourself, but with your family. Say, hey, this is here, this is here, this is important. Tell me back. Where is all the stuff? How do you do it? Very, very important. I know some family members may not be super keen on that. Doesn't matter. Tell them if they want that money one day, they're going to need to know. Now, again, I think CoinJoin and other on-chain obfuscation tools to improve your privacy are super important. I think it's a great thing to do. So make sure you dive into that. Even if that's not your first order of business, make it something on the list to check out over time. And again, whenever possible, use anything that doesn't require KYC, any of your personal information. Even when you're buying hardware and supplies and stuff like that, try to use a PO box. And, CoinKite's really good. You can even request your information to be deleted, but they rotate and delete your information automatically after a certain point in time, and obtain your Bitcoin non-KYC if you can. If you've already obtained KYC Bitcoin, start a secondary stack that's non-KYC. You'll thank me later. Okay, don't. These are equally important, if not more. Number one, don't overcomplicate things to the point where you lock yourself and your family out. We kind of already said this, but it needs to be said again and again and again. The majority of losses come from people screwing up themselves. So be confident in what you've done, practice it, make sure, and try things a whole bunch of times before you settle on, hey, this is actually how I'm going to secure my real Bitcoin now. Experiment, learn, get confident, and then execute. Number two, don't keep access to everything all in one place. All of this that we've gone through, a lot of the points of it are, you're at risk when all access to your Bitcoin is in a singular location. It is so much more difficult for people to get access to your stuff when it's segregated, when it's in separate locations, when you require multiple things in multiple places to access. At the very least, perhaps have a tactic like the trick pins, bricking your device. In case somebody comes in, you can do something. Another thing, don't broadcast or boast about how much Bitcoin you have. If you can, be relatively private about it. You don't need to be chatting about Bitcoin all over the place. I'm the worst example of that, but I'm kind of taking one for the team here so that you guys can be better about it. Now, I'm not saying don't go meet Bitcoiners. I'm not saying don't be social. I think it's important that we have networks, that we have communities and everything like that. But you don't need to be flashing around how many sats you actually have stacked. That's important. And finally, don't rely on a single thing. Have a variety of mitigation techniques. Like, yes, ideally everything works out as you planned. Here's the device, here's the backup, here's how we access it. But especially as you get to some of the multi-sig stuff, everything like that, it's a good idea to say, okay, here's the pieces that we need. But if something happens, then just in case, I've got a secondary device or something here. Okay, so just have kind of like a contingency plan. If everything doesn't go perfectly, what's the pain in the butt way to do it, but that will still give you access? And that's where you can have some nice written instructions for family just in case. So with that, hopefully this gives you some decent guidelines. And again, you can walk, don't run. As long as you're moving, you're making progress. Don't feel you have to speed run through all of this. But hopefully this gives you some tools in your tool belt to begin learning about. Make sure you actually take some action though. Make sure that you're actually learning here. Pick one of these things, figure out where you're at with skill level, and then try the next thing in this list for you. And then just kind of continue on, pick away at it. Every resource that we've talked about is in a link down below with a step-by-step video tutorial for you. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, please do like, subscribe, share, all those things. They help a ton. If you need some additional help in your learning journey, of course, we have a whole bunch of references in relation to this video down below, but be sure to head over to btcsessions.ca/learn. We've got a 0 to hero Bitcoiner in one page, and we've pre-selected a handful of videos from beginner to intermediate to advanced so that you can really level up. If you can get through these videos, you're going to be a master compared to your average Bitcoiner. And finally, if you need some additional one-on-one hand-holding, you can reach out to my team at bitcoinmentor.io. You can find them on the very same page. That's where you can book sessions with myself, Nathan, Gary, and the rest of my team of expert Bitcoiners that can make sure that your setup is rock solid. With that, I'm out. Keep stacking sats, but of course, keep stacking those skills. I'm Ben with the BTC Sessions. This was your daily session.